Okay, let's hope this works. I just tried to start this production twice and everything froze up on me. It's 8 o'clock. I'm Jeff Ginter. This is Real Progressives. I'm going to be joined by a special guest tonight, David Frank. He is going to discuss with us an idea he has. It's called One Voice, Direct Democracy. So we're going to get to that in a moment. But before we begin, I want to set it up. The idea of direct democracy. I want to talk about what that means to me and what it's going to mean to the country if we could get something like this going. I've said before, and I can't overemphasize. We talk about democracy. We talk about direct democracy versus the representational democracy that we actually have. Or at least that we theoretically have. I'm sure there are many people that think we don't have a democracy at all anymore, and I have great sympathy for that concept. And I agree, we don't actually have democracy, but that's only because we're not participating. As soon as we participate to the level that is required, we will have democracy again. It's up to us. You don't think we have a democracy? What are you doing to make sure we have it? And not just in terms of what you personally are doing. Are you waking up other people? Are you encouraging them to participate in the democracy? This is important because everyone wants something out of their government. Everyone wants something to come from this. And we're not going to get much of any of it if we don't all collectively decide to do it. We, the people of the United States of America. Not me, the individual who happens to live in the United States of America. We, the people. We have to be united. We have to stand up. We have to take accountability for our own self. And we have to be able to say that I am a citizen and that means something. And I have to do something about that. I can't just simply be on my couch and do nothing. So just to outline the idea of democracy, direct democracy versus representational democracy. And I've said this before and I will say it as many times as is necessary. Direct democracy is hard. It insists that you are informed as a citizen. It insists that you know what you're talking about, sufficient to be able to be informed and sufficient to be able to have an opinion and vote on everything that comes your way. That's direct democracy from a functional standpoint. And that's hard. We all have lives, we all have jobs, husbands, wives, children, we have school, we have all manner of things to be able to occupy our time, let alone wanting to do something to better ourselves for ourselves. So it's hard to be able to find the time to be able to be properly informed on all these things. It's hard. Representational democracy, where we vote for a representative to go to our state capitals and our national capitals to vote on our behalf, is even harder. It's a lot harder because it is the siren song of go to sleep. Vote for someone to do it for you. It doesn't even mandate that you vote for that person. You can stay home. People do it in droves. Representational democracy asks nothing of you whatsoever. And that makes it all the harder because if you want the government that you want, you have to want it. You have to rise above the lack of a mandate that you get involved. You have to choose to do it on your own. And that is really hard. For 47 years, I stood on the sidelines and I watched and I observed and I learned and I yelled and I screamed, but I didn't do anything. It is that sublime to just do nothing. It is that sublime. And we have to stop doing that. Yes, Claire, apathy is deadly. Absolutely. But that's what we have to overcome. That is what the oligarchs are counting on. They are counting on you being so distracted with the 3 jobs you have, our wonderful unemployment rate, where everyone is lucky enough to have 1 full-time job and 2 part-time jobs, or 3 full-time or 3 part-time jobs, or what have you. These numbers that they have and they tantalizingly put in front of us. Oh, we've got a 4.1 unemployment rate. It's better than it's been in years. But they don't break down the numbers. They don't tell you who's still catching hell. They don't tell you that the African American community folded into those numbers are always higher individually than white America. They don't tell you that these jobs are low-paying jobs, that you can't afford to have a full-time job in this current economy because it doesn't pay you enough. So you have to have a side hustle. You have to have multiple part-time jobs. You have to be a consultant, not because you want to be, but because you have to be. No one's going to pay you to have a full-time job, so you have to constantly sell yourself all the time, just trying to find a gig, just trying to find a paycheck. Some of you might get off on that, but most of you think that's hell. So how did we get here? We get here through apathy. We get here through lack of engagement. We need to invigorate our democracy. It's all about democracy. And if you're not involved in it, then I love you very much, but you are part of the problem. I was part of the problem for most of my adult life, and I hold myself to account for that. The pain that you are going through, that we are all going through, I bear responsibility for that. And I own that, and I'm owning up to that, and I'm doing something about it. Even if what I try never actually goes anywhere, I will not stop trying to find some way to make it right. Someone's got to. We have got to. So I'm going to be talking to someone today, David Frank. He's got an idea for how we can get a semblance of direct democracy. Not functionally, not legislatively, because even on this small local level, it's difficult to get people to be able to function in that manner. But he's got an idea about how to do that. And we're going to talk about how we can bring all that back. You know, how can his vision for direct democracy help us achieve single-payer health care, help us achieve 100% green energy right now, help us achieve 21st century, 22nd century infrastructure, a federal job guarantee. How can we get that? Polls upon polls upon polls say 60 to 70% of the people want single-payer health care. How is it that we don't have it already? So I believe that my guest is here. I'm going to swipe, and I will seek him. I will seek him where he is. There he is. I'm inviting him. I'm adding him. I'm hoping he's coming. Come on, David. Come on down. You're the next contestant on Jeff is Usually Right. Okay, hopefully he's trying to figure out how this works. So I'm going to start to outline the issue. Oh, I think he's coming on. There he is. There's my man.
Hey, Jeff.
How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Excellent, thanks. Had a wonderful day, busy at work, but I feel invigorated. Woo! So everyone, this is David. This is David Frank. He's got a wonderful idea. David, take it away. Tell everyone what your vision is for direct democracy. One voice. In your own words, what is it?
Well, you know, Jeff, first of all, before I go there, I want to thank you.
You're welcome.
I want to thank you for the work that you do.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Hey, you know, it's you and people like you that have taken the time to educate the citizenry as to what's really going on, you know, in our country. And it's bad.
Oh, yeah.
You know, the decision-making process is horrible. If you look at, you know, the education system, if you look at the environment, if you look at the healthcare system, it's all horrible. And the reason that it's horrible is because the people that have been making decisions for us have been paid to make bad decisions.
That's very true.
You know, I think people forget that that's why you bribe a judge, a juror, or a politician. You don't bribe them to make good decisions. You bribe them to make bad decisions. And that's the system. Absolutely. And that's the system that we have now. And I think people are waking up to the fact that we are not going to be able to solve 21st century issues with a 1700 system.
Absolutely.
You know, we live in an incredible time right now. And look at this. I mean, you and I have a broadcasting station in our hands.
Absolutely.
We're able to reach out to, you know, millions of people. We weren't able to do this just 25 years ago.
5 years ago.
And we have the technology. We have the technology that our founders didn't have. And our founders used the best technology they could come up with, which was, politicians getting on horseback, riding back and forth like electrical impulses, supposedly to take our voices to Washington or state capitals or downtown. But I think, unfortunately, fortunately, I should say, we've awoken to the fact that that's not happening. We have no representation. I'm almost 70 years old. I've never been asked my opinion on any issue. I have no voice. I have no representation. But we have to be like our founders. And our founders were inventors. They used what they had. And that's what we have to do. We have to use what we have. And we have this amazing, amazing communication technology that they could have never even dreamt of. And, there's no writings in the Constitution about televisions or touch-tone phones or computers or anything like that. So that's what we have. And we now know that, our system is no longer working. But our founders, in their infinite wisdom in the Declaration of Independence, told us that it's not only our right, but it's our duty to change the system when it gets this bad. And I think everybody will agree that this is bad.
It's Citizenship 101 to question.
We're looking at World War III.
Yeah. We're looking down the barrel of that.
Yes, we're looking at World War III now. We're closer than we've ever been, and we can't sit back and allow this to happen any longer. These politicians are dragging us into hell. They're dragging us to a point where they're going to eliminate the human race, and we've got to change things, and we can do this. But if we fail to plan, we plan to fail. The politicians don't have a plan. They've been paid to be brain dead, if you will. So it's up to us. Go ahead.
What's your proposition? You and I were talking about direct democracy and what your idea is. Tell the people, what do you envision for how we can take that back?
Yeah, basically, once again, we live in the 21st century. We have all this amazing communication technology. Let's use it. We live in a time where we have the travel channel, the food channel, the sports channel. We have all these channels, but we don't have the most important channel. And the most important channel is the local issues TV, radio, and internet channel. That's the local channel where we get busy in our communities and start fixing education, environment, healthcare, whatever it is. And a lot of people don't realize that they own a television station. And the television station that they own is called Public Broadcasting. It's not owned by anyone else. It's owned by we the people. And we have access to local public broadcasting stations that are being used the wrong way. Public broadcasting started back in 1969, and everybody was excited about, the fact that, hey, maybe they're going to actually broadcast to the public. But what they did was they used it for everything but that. We're watching Antique Roadshow and cartoons and 60s music. What we need to do is basically follow in Martin Luther King's footsteps and stand up and demand a voice. What we want to do, and this is our plan, it's called One Voice Now. We want to stand up as a community and demand that we change the format of our local public broadcasting stations to be used as our local issues TV, radio, and internet channels, so that people in your community right now that have ideas to make your education system better, your environment better, a better tax system, a better healthcare system, whatever it is, they'll be able to present their ideas directly to the community over the TV, radio, and the internet. And after we present these ideas, we want people to be educated on these different ideas. We'll debate these ideas, videotape the debate, present that over our local issues TV, radio, and internet channel, our public broadcasting channel. And then we're voting on American Idol today, Dancing with the Stars, CNN. Then you'll be able to vote with any touch-tone phone. If you find an issue that you're interested in, all you'll do is vote with any touch-tone phone. You'll call a local number. It'll go into a community database. It will have your ID number and PIN number, ask you what issue number you'd like to vote on, press 1 for yes, 2 for no, count your vote, block you out from voting more than once, and we can have decisions the way our founders wanted them to be made, of the people, by the people, and finally for the people. And that's basically it. It's really not complicated. The politicians hate this, and that's why we're bringing it to the people. You got it changing hands here. And we're doing everything we can to get this idea out. And that's why I appreciate you letting me be on your program today.
I love the idea. I felt it was important to get that idea out. You know, and just to be clear, what we're talking about is civic engagement. We're not saying that the people are going to have legislative powers. We're simply saying that we're going to put on regular debates on issues and have citizens vote yay or nay, and then present those results to those that do actually have legislative authority and say, this is what the people want. This is the way we want you to vote. We have the numbers behind you. You have now got your marching orders. Go and do it. And if you don't, at the very least, now the people know that you are truly not in their working in their best interest. Would you agree? That's what we're talking about?
Absolutely.
There we go.
And if you really look at the Constitution,
I think he froze. Well, I'll wait for him to come back. I want to expound on this a little bit. David, if you still hear me, but your video is frozen, if you need to quit out and load back in, I'll bring you back in. All right, so if you can hear me, try that if you don't unfreeze in a moment. But just to expound on that, imagine what we can do. Job guarantee, a way for us to be able to debate locally what our challenges are. You know, what do we want? And if we had a federal job guarantee, first off, we could use this technology to allow people to vote on the idea. Do we like the idea of a federal job guarantee? You know, we have poll after poll saying that single-payer health care is 60 to 70% popular in this country. We could codify that down to districts. We could get us involved and be able to show numbers. This community demands that we have a federal job guarantee. This community demands that we go into green energy. This community demands, whatever it is, we decide what to debate. We decide. It's up to us. It's going to take citizen involvement, and that's going to take us getting involved, making sure that we get the TV station to do this, and then making sure that we run the table. The citizens of the community run the table. You know, at every stage of the game, it's going to have to be up to us. I'm just checking to see if David is back yet. Yes, he is. Let's see if this comes back. At every stage of the game, we have to be the ones involved. We have to be in the driver's seat. And that's only going to happen when we insist, when we demand that that is what it's going to be. We cannot allow special interests to come in and say, how can we help? We absolutely agree with you. How can we help? That is controlled opposition. If you want to be able to write legislation to rein in the greed of the banking system, you cannot have the bankers in the room. There are people out there who understand perfectly well the banking system that don't work for the banking system, and they are the ones who should write the legislation. You do not regulate the energy industry by inviting the energy industry into the room. You don't do it. They don't have your interest involved. They have their interest involved. I've said it many times. If you are in business, your first and most important question is, how do I make the most money off of this? That's your purpose. That is your raison d'etre. That is why you exist. Ergo, you cannot be part of the legislative process. To anyone that is offended by this, I'm terribly sorry for your offense. But that doesn't get away from the facts that you cannot regulate yourself. Regulation demands that someone else holds oversight and regulatory authority over you. That's the way it works. And we, the people, must insist. So if we build this system of democracy now, it looks like it didn't work. I'm going to try to bring him in yet again. I can see that he's there. It's just not working bringing him on. If we get this system, if we can get control of our airwaves, of our public broadcasting, and instead of, posting bullshit, entertaining bullcrap with very little production value from what I've seen on public broadcasting, but if we can actually get issue-oriented debates and get eyes on the prize, get people to watch, get people to be involved, get people to vote, sky's the limit. We win. Because there would never be a better way to show that the politicians are not with the people. We already have polls that show that in countries like the United States, public opinion has a negligible influence on finished policy. If that be the case, how is this a democracy? If public opinion barely even moves the needle on Congress, how is that democracy? Forget about direct democracy. It's not even representational democracy because you're supposed to be representing us. And if our views aren't heard, if our views aren't valued, then what are we voting for? It's up to us. It has always been up to us. And I have never seen in my lifetime a time more likely for good things to happen than now. I want to be perfectly clear where I stand on Donald Trump. I absolutely, positively don't care about the man. I've never met him. I don't hate him. I find it physically impossible to hate someone that I don't know, that I've never met. But I hate what he does. I hate what he stands for. I hate what he says. It is unbelievably offensive to everything I hold dear that he sits in that chair in that office, that he was ever allowed to take possession. It is deeply offensive to my sensibilities. However, that doesn't mean that we need to focus on him 100%. There has to be life after Donald Trump. There has to be a plan. There has to be engagement. I was talking to someone before, about here in New Jersey, doesn't matter what the bill is, but why bother writing the bill if Chris Christie, who used to be our governor, isn't going to sign it? And my head just exploded inside. What's the point? Having it ready to go. If you are to be a governing body, if you are to be responsible for the governing of a nation, you must govern. And that means more than just simply dealing with what is directly in front of you. Donald Trump is now directly in front of you, and you must deal with that. You must resist that, but you must also be revolutionary. You must prepare for what happens afterwards. There must be a plan. So single-payer health care. You don't think you have an executive who would sign it? Then write the bill anyway. Make it perfect. Research it. Take this opportunity. You don't think he's going to sign it, so now you have the time to craft a legislation that addresses everything you needed to address. So when we do have a chief executive who will sign it, it's ready to go. It's pret-a-porter. And you don't have to waste time and lives. I've said this before. 45,000 people die every year as a result of lack of access to health care. But even if we shored up the ACA to cover everyone, even if we put all the money in there necessary to make sure that everyone had health insurance, which is no guarantee of quality care, but everyone now has health insurance. Wonderful. 220,000 people conservatively die every year due to lack of access, due to medical errors. Medical errors, the third leading cause of death right after cancer and heart disease. These are preventable deaths. They never had to die. But someone was cutting corners People were putting pressure down to make sure that we saved as much money so that money could be profit. And people die as a result. So those people that are dying now, we don't have an executive that will sign single-payer health care. Fair enough. But write the bill now. Make it ready to go. Start making the argument. Get people on board. Get the public on board. Start telling us what's in it. Get us part of the process so we can tell you what we want to include. You have nothing but time right now because no one's going to sign it, but people are dying. So you want to make sure that you stop the bleeding the second you have that opportunity. And if you don't start working on it until you have an executive who is ready to sign it, that could be 300, 600,000 people dead by the time you have something ready for someone to sign. And you will be responsible for those deaths, for your inaction when you had the time, when you had the opportunity. It is always the right time to start working on what is right. It is always the right time to demand justice. It is always the right time. For everyone that says, now is not the time, we have other things to deal with, we can't politicize this. No, now is the time. It is past time. You tell me it's not the time right now, I will drag your ass to funerals. And you will tell headstones and the families that are left behind, I'm sorry, it just wasn't the right time. It is always the right time to do what is right. Always. 100%. And when you understand the macroeconomic realities of our country, I know that you're afraid of the Federal Reserve. Screw them. I know that you're afraid of the oligarchs and the rich. Screw them. Leave them alone. We don't need them. Make them irrelevant, because all the shenanigans that they pull, everything that you've ever heard about the Federal Reserve, let's just say that 100% of it is true. The one thing that is not true is that we need to change any of it before Congress can act. Congress creates the currency. The Federal Reserve oversees a banking system that creates credit. It's not the same thing. Not by far. So let's make sure that we all understand how finance actually works. Who creates the currency? Not who creates the credit, who creates the currency. Who is a currency issuer versus who is a currency user. Congress creates the currency, they are the currency issuer. They need permission from no one to spend money on the general purpose. See if I can bring David in again. One more time. They don't need permission from anyone. There is no power that the Federal Reserve has to prevent Congress from doing its constitutional mandate. If they want to spend on the military-industrial complex, they can do it. David! Just give me 1 second, David. If they want to spend on the public purpose, they can do it. The Federal Reserve has no power whatsoever to say no. None whatsoever. So we don't need to fix it before we take care of it. And if you want to fix it, do that later. You are killing people. You are allowing people to die who don't need to die if you think we need to do X, Y, and Z first before we do single payer, before we do 100% green energy, before we do a federal jobs guarantee. None of that needs to wait for us to fix the Federal Reserve or fix the banking system or take care of the oligarchs. None of that has to happen. Dave, I'm sorry. I'm sorry you had a hard time coming on. Every time I tried to bring you in, everything just went to shit. So.
Yeah, I don't know what happened over there. That was strange. I was alive, but you were frozen.
It was the other way around for me. You were frozen on my end. Oh well.
Anyway, listen. Let me share this plan one more time, sure, because I want to make sure people get Absolutely. It. Okay, is that okay with you?
That's perfectly fine.
All right. once again, I mean, just like Jeff says, this thing's not working. The financial system has to be changed. The education system has to be changed. The healthcare, all these things. And the government's not going to do it for us. We have to do it for ourselves. It's not going to happen in Washington. It's not going to happen in state capitals. It's not going to happen by 9 goofballs on a city council. It's going to take everybody.
Yeah.
All being interconnected.
All the goofballs.
But the way that you do this, right, the way that you do this is you don't do it from the top down. You do it from the ground up,
Absolutely.
Community by community. And we have the communication technology today, like we were talking earlier, that our founders couldn't have dreamt of. What we need to do in each community is use our local public broadcasting station. It's owned by you, the people. Everybody owns it. We finance it, whether it's tax dollars, donations, whatever it is. We, the people, finance it. We own it. And what we have to do is stand up as a nonviolent group and demand that we change the format of our local public broadcasting station from cartoons, antique roadshow, 60s music, to local issues where you, the people, get busy fixing your education system, fixing your environment, fixing your healthcare system, fixing our financial system, fixing our tax system. All of these things can be fixed. But what we will do is we'll change the format. People in your community will be able to present their ideas directly to the community over the TV. We'll simulcast over the radio, live stream over the internet. It will be our web page, our local web page, if you will.
And just like
where we start resolving issues.
Just like the federal job guarantee is locally administered, we locally administer how we do this. Each community gets to decide how they will implement their public broadcasting system. They get to decide.
That's right.
Which is fantastic.
And it'll get better and better and better. Yeah. All this is the Model T. This is like the Model T rolling off the assembly line. And you, the people, will come up with ideas to make it better and better and better. The politicians hate it because they know it's only a matter of time before someone raises the issue that says, hey, we just had 100,000 people vote on our local tax dollars. Why are we going to leave the final decision up to 5 of the 9 on the city council? And they know that it's all going to change, but it has to change because our old system is done. It's bankrupt. It's corrupt. Everybody knows this. And it's up to we, the people, to fix it. The people that are corrupt are not going to change it. It's up to we, the people. But first we need a plan. If we fail to plan, we plan to fail.
Absolutely.
This is the plan. Very simple. You got a TV, radio, or are you on the internet? Well, instead of voting for politicians, why don't you just watch issues over the TV, radio, or internet and vote by phone?
Absolutely.
Can't make it any more simple.
All right, well,
so
I really appreciate you coming on. I mean, I love the idea. I think it's an important idea. I think it's a missing element in civic engagement that we would all be involved in, beyond going to rallies, which we need to do, beyond writing letters to the editor, which we need to do, beyond voting every 4 years if you're even not that engaged, beyond all that, the ability to maintain 7-day-a-week engagement in the things that matter to your lives, whether they be local matters or national matters. We would have a voice that could not be ignored, a voice on public broadcasting with votes that we would be able to bring to our local legislators or our national legislators and say, we the people, this is what we want, these are our numbers, this is what we demand that you do. What could be more powerful than that?
That's right. And it'll be the truth that'll make us free. And the truth is, we now have this communication technology. It's right here. It's in the palm of our hands. And it's up to us to use it. And like we were talking earlier, 2,000 years ago when it was stated that there will be a day where the last will be first and the first will be last.
Absolutely.
That's what this technology allows to happen. And we can do this. But Dave Frank can't do it alone, and Jeff can't do it alone. It's going to take everybody. But if we can just focus on one plan, and that plan is One Voice Now, please go to our website. It's onevoicenow.org. Check it out.
Please.
You'll see exactly how simple an issue can be raised in your community, debated in your community, voted on in your community. Implement it in your community, and you will start to change your community. You know, think about it. Everybody's upset about the police department.
Yes.
It's time that you, the people, decide
Yes.
what role your police department plays in your community.
Yeah.
People are upset about the education system. It's time that you, the people, the parents and the teachers, start working together and building an education system that's better than ever. The environment, there are people out there that care about our environment. Our oceans have turned into piles of crap. And we, the people, have to do this. But sitting, waiting for politicians who have been bought and paid for to make sure that nothing gets better,
Absolutely.
only their lifestyle. You know, we can't do this any longer. We can't leave this for the kids. But one other thing, and this is something Jeff and I had talked about earlier, we need to get this out, and we need help. You know, right now there are, 40 people watching this thing, 41.
Yeah. We had up to 50 before.
And some of you know someone, or you know of someone that is in the entertainment industry, like a musician or an actor, somebody like that. And people forget that it was during Vietnam, if it weren't for the celebrities standing up and helping America get out of Vietnam, we'd still be there today.
They certainly made it popular.
So if you know of someone that can help us get this out, a celebrity, if you will, that we can talk to about One Voice Now, please get in touch with us. Because I'll tell you what, this country is like a blister that's getting ready to pop. I mean, I have never seen so many people so upset that the timing is absolutely right. And we're sitting here watching the system beat itself up. We're watching 2 organized crime syndicates fighting over $4 trillion a year of our money. And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, that's why your communities are broke. There's no money left in your communities. Between the federal government sucking the money out of your community, the state government sucking the money out of your community, the mayor and the city council stealing your money, there's no money left for we the people. But we can do this. But first we need a plan. We have the plan. It's called One Voice Now. The website is onevoicenow.org. Please help us find somebody, some celebrity somewhere, a musician, an actor, a wealthy person, whoever it is that has the wherewithal to help us promote One Voice Now. You know, Jeff and I are on here pushing this thing. Unfortunately, I'm a nobody. Jeff, I don't know, maybe you are a somebody, but you know what I'm saying.
To my wife.
We need... You lucky.
If you met her, you'd know how lucky I am. She's amazing.
There you go. But we can do this. But we just need one good break, and I hope you like the plan. Can't make it any more simple.
And this is perfect.
Got a TV, radio, or are you on the internet? Watch over the TV, radio, or internet, and vote by phone. Let's go. Let's not wait for these guys any longer.
And this is perfect because what David and I are both doing, what we're both talking about, is public purpose. You know, we're talking about the federal government working for the public purpose again, and we're talking about the public being a part of that solution. The public, yet again, rising up and taking its mandate. We have talked a lot on Real Progressives about how the federal government has been ignoring its constitutional mandate to pay to the public purpose. My very first live stream, I told a story about one day I was listening to public radio, NPR, and I caught the tail end of someone, the name of which I still, to this day, cannot remember who it was, but he was talking about education. And he was talking to a group of college students, and at the end of his speech, he was talking about political corruption, corruption in our economy, corruption in our country. And he said, and this is not a verbatim, this is a paraphrase, if you look to the world around you and you look to everything that you are dissatisfied with, to everything that makes you mad, to everything that makes you angry, all the injustice, everything that gets under your skin and is an affront to everything that you hold dear, you will be tempted to look to the politicians and blame them. And you must, because they are to blame. And you will be tempted to look to the media, and you will want to blame them. And you must, because they are to blame. And if you were to look to the rich people and the oligarchs and you were to find them culpable, you would be correct, because they are to blame. But the combined culpability of all three of these groups would be dwarfed by our combined culpability for allowing it to happen in the first place. Because when the people stand up, that is the power of the country. We, the people, this country was founded on the principle, although imperfectly, and by men who didn't really mean it, but the preamble to the Constitution outlines perfectly what we are supposed to be doing as a nation. We are supposed to be standing up and being counted. We are supposed to be part of the democratic process. We are supposed to be we, the people. And real progressives and one voice, direct democracy are both representing this concept, getting we, the people, back in action. We're getting the band back together. And we are no longer going to be accepting of oligarchs looking down upon us with disdain and saying, thou shalt survive and thou shalt not. Upon this day I shall declare that thou art not worthy of federal money, and thou shalt be getting the pittance that I have deemed worthy of you. No more of that. We are the ultimate arbiters of our fate, and we abdicated that responsibility unto other people, because, as I said, representational democracy is a siren song. Don't get involved. Turn on your TV by all means, but it's American Idol on, and that's what's important. Go to the movies and do internet crap. Allow yourself to be distracted by the 14,000 jobs you have to have just to be able to keep a roof over your head. Do all those things, but do not, under any circumstances, question the oligarchy. Do not, under any circumstances, question the conditions under which you find yourself and how you came to be. Because they don't want you knowing that the federal government is without fiscal constraints. Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution mandates that Congress, and only Congress, creates the currency. The Federal Reserve overlooks a banking system that creates debt, that creates credit. It is not the same thing. If you get your money from the federal government, that's your income. You are free to do with it as you wish. If you go to a bank or a credit card company or a predatory lender, that is credit. You are now under their boot. And we have more and more people that are going to predatory lenders to pay off the interest off of the loans they got from the bank and the credit card companies. That the federal government is in debt, denominated in its own currency, floating bonds that it never has to be able to come up with new money to pay for. It never used the bond money in the first place. It didn't need it to fund anything. Congress simply mandates that we sell bonds. If Congress mandates that we sell bonds for a currency that is free floating, fiat, not backed by gold, they can mandate that we don't sell bonds anymore. And then the debt will go away. We have to understand the difference between currency users and currency issuers. The federal government is a currency issuer. Ergo, its only responsibility is to maintain the resources. That's the real economy. You and I are currency users. It matters very much if we are in debt, because all debt to us is a currency that we don't control. So we have to understand this.
And it's slavery.
It is economic
That is slavery.
Absolutely. We are now all.
And we didn't sign for this. None of us signed for any of this. And there's really no reason why we should be responsible. This is identity theft. Yeah. Actually, the people in Washington, D.C. should be in prison because we would. This is identity theft. They put their name on somebody else's credit card.
You don't even have to be in Washington.
If somebody out here did that, they'd be in prison.
You could work
and they should be.
And they won't be in prison. It's ridiculous.
That's right.
Money makes all the difference, and it matters where you get the money from. Because if you're the federal government, or if you have so much money, you can afford to buy yourself out of prison. It matters a great deal. Money is power. That's all money is. Money is power. You know, if you have money, you have power. You have the power to feed yourself. You have the power to be able to clothe yourself, to house yourself. But most of the people, 99%, only have that much power. They only have that much power. And that's it. If you are the oligarchs, you have so much money. You don't ever have the ability to spend it all. So now you can start spending your money on things that should never be for sale. You're buying democracy. You are buying politicians. So as Joe Firestone says, we can have the end of the debt if we just simply mandate, every time Congress spends, mandate that the debt instruments be automatically paid, automatically be put into the Treasury. You know, every time that a bond comes due, just automatically mandate that all deficit spending as a result of this bill will automatically be paid. And then the debt goes away.
Time for a Jubilee year.
You know,
it's time for a Jubilee year.
That's Real Progressives OCF. That's the deal. You know, we have to understand the difference between a currency user and a currency issuer. And it makes all the difference. It's such a tiny concept, but it has massive repercussions, massive repercussions. You know, we talk about, you were talking about, police, and police violence. We could end that because the only issue is money. If we staff them properly, if we train them properly, if we put in a social worker with every police officer, we can turn police officers from a militarized standpoint into peace officers. I remember growing up in the 70s, they used to call them peace officers on the television shows. They used to call them peace officers. Let's do that again. Let's call them peace officers. And maybe if we call them peace officers and pay them commensurate and staff them commensurate and put in social workers to be able to help out, we can actually turn them into peace officers instead of an army of occupation in so many communities. We can do this. It's only money. And the federal government has as much money as it needs to be able to do it. And it's only a question of resources. It only matters if we have the resources to be able to do it. That's our only limitation. We could have community policing. We could have mental health care with single-payer health care that would include everything. We could have a federal jobs guarantee. We could revitalize entire swaths of our country. Our rural hospitals are closing, and they're closing because they don't have the tax revenue. Well, first off, remove the necessity for tax revenue to keep these things open. Remove insurance companies to make sure that they become solvent. Pay everything at the federal level for health. And then with a federal job guarantee, Bill, not resources, political will. Resources are the restriction, Bill. Political will is the restriction to using it in that fashion. It's a little bit of both. You need the political will to turn the attention to resource-based economics from financial-based economics. But we've had a federal job guarantee. All these small-town communities that are going under, all these jobs that are going away, all these communities that are crumbling can suddenly come back to life. We're talking about doing one voice. We're talking about having a public channel where we can actually talk about things that need to be done in our local communities. We could talk about how we're going to dispense the federal money for the job guarantee. Because every town, every city, every community, if you go to the town hall and you ask them, if money were no object, what would you do? What would you do? They will give you a laundry list of things that they would do, but don't get done because no one's stepping up to do it because there's no profit to be made. But that doesn't mean it doesn't need to be done. It just means no one's going to make money. Hello, federal government, the one institution that needs no revenue, that needs no profit. It just simply needs to decide where to spend its resources, where to spread the resources. That's it. And like Bill said, it takes political will. And where does the political will come from? From us, Real Progressives, one voice. If we, the people, stand up, we get it. We get it.
And politicians are supposed to be representatives. That's what they're
Yeah.
really supposed to be.
But they represent Wall
They're
Street.
supposed to be doing what we want them to do as opposed to us doing what they want. Everything's backwards. What's right is wrong. Wrong is right. But that's why we have to bring our system into the 21st century.
Absolutely.
Once again, you can't solve 1700 or 21st century issues with a 1700 system.
Yeah.
You just can't do it.
Yeah.
And we've got to stand up like our founders, and we have to have a better plan. And this is so simple.
Mm-hmm.
Demand that you change the format of your local public broadcasting station to your local issues TV, radio, and internet channel. Set up a community database. Start raising issues exactly like the ones that Jeff is talking about. Education issues, environment issues, whatever.
Absolutely.
Piece by piece, we start rebuilding our community. And all of a sudden, we start setting the precedent that the way to change things isn't through violence, which is what's happening now. And that's what our federal government is leading us to. They're showing us that every time we have a conflict, we're going to go kick somebody's ass.
Sure.
Well, that's not the way that you resolve issues. You resolve issues through communication. But you can't do it until you have the communication tools up and running that interconnect all of the brain cells in your community. Because right now in our community, for example, there's 267,000 people, or brain cells. That's the way I look at them. And we're using 9. That's called a brain dead system.
Yeah.
On a state level, there's 6 million brain cells, and we're using 150.
Yeah.
That's a brain dead system. Yeah. And on a national level, we've got 545. I include the president and 9 idiots on the Supreme Court.
Those are only half a brain cell
making
each,
decisions.
That's only half a brain cell each, though.
Yeah, well, that's true. But it's all brain dead. And that's why we have to make today the last will be first and the first will be last. It's time for us to be first. And the only way we're ever going to have equality in America or anywhere else is for everybody to have an equal voice. And the exciting thing about it is we see people struggling in other countries, being victims of political dictators like the ones that we have. All of a sudden, if we do this in America, in North Korea, they're going to go, hey, wait a minute, what are they doing in America? They've remapped their country. They've set up the communication tools so that they can start fixing their country community by community. And they can be involved in One Voice now, too.
Well, what's interesting about that?
It's all here.
Yeah.
Pardon me?
Well, what's interesting about that, what you're talking about reminds me of when Reagan used to say that America was the shining house on the hill, the shining mansion on the hill. We were the example for the world. And I personally, I don't think that was ever the case. We put on a good show, in my opinion, but that show had a lot of rot, at the core of it. We still had the ramifications of genocide of Native Americans. We still had Jim Crow, whether it be the actual Jim Crow or the new Jim Crow with the, criminalization, and prison industrial complex. We had misogyny, we have all kinds of problems, but we had a lot of affluence, we had a lot of wealth. The shining, was really just lights, behind the scenes. It was terrible. But we could be that shining city on the hill.
We are the melting pot.
Yes.
We are the melting pot. We bring people from around the world and the things that they've learned into one place. And that's why during World War II, we were so powerful because of all these different ideas that have come together in the greatest country in the world. But just because it's the greatest country in the world doesn't mean it's the greatest system in the world.
Absolutely.
And it's not.
It's
not the greatest system.
No, we have the greatest country in the world on paper. We have the greatest country in the world conceptually speaking. And it's not, and to me, it's because our Constitution, it does two things. It mandates that we are of the people, for the people, and by the people. The preamble states it, Article 1, Section 8 codifies it. And the Constitution itself allows for us to make changes. It allows for the idea that the Founding Fathers, in the earlier today, you said in their infinite wisdom, I don't grant them that, but there was wisdom there. There was wisdom there. And to me, their greatest wisdom, their greatest humility was a tacit acknowledgement that this is what we are doing now. This is as far as we can take it, but we know we're not done. And we show that by allowing the Constitution to be amended, to change the laws, to be able to change the face of the country. And that to me is genius. That to me is power. But that to me is also responsibility. We must rise to that challenge every day. Every generation must look to the Constitution and decide, does it still make sense? Does it still make sense today? Is it still saying what we think it says? Do we need to reinterpret it in some way? And it gets reinterpreted all the time. Second Amendment is a perfect example. We could be having the debate on One Voice Now, on our public broadcasting about guns.
Absolutely.
We could be talking person to person. Fuck the NRA. To hell with the NRA. How dare they get involved in such a matter with such a heavy hand, that has such an incredible consequence to our consciousness, to the soul of our country, and it has a real body count associated with it. We, the people, decide what the Second Amendment means. We, the people, decide if it still makes sense. 250 years of Supreme Court law stated that it was not for self-protection, that it was not a guarantee of every citizen to have a gun regardless. It was to be part of a militia. 30 years of a weaponized NRA changing the national conversation and understanding, and we get Washington versus Heller, and then we get Scalia saying, yes, it is for the purposes of owning a gun, a handgun, for self-protection. But even Scalia, in his affirming opinion, specifically stated that the right to own a weapon was not unlimited, that the federal government had the ability to limit the amount, the type of weaponry, that an assault weapon ban was perfectly constitutional. You got people running around right now saying, thou shalt not take my guns. I can have an AR-15 if I want one. The Constitution says. But no, it doesn't. There was no Supreme Court ever in the entire history of our country that has said you have the right to whatever weaponry you want. The closest you ever got was Heller. And it only got you a handgun for self-protection. That's it. So we need a national conversation about what the Second Amendment is, what kind of country we want to be in. Do we want to disarm the citizenry if the police force is weaponized and militarized? Do we want to be able to say, well, I would like to have a peaceful community, but it's a dangerous world out there. I need to have a gun. How are you making the world safer by getting a gun? You cannot promote peace by preparing for war. We need this conversation. We need it to be done by the people because the politicians are already bought and paid for by the NRA. They're already bought and paid for by the weapon manufacturers.
Jeff, let me say this. Sure. Look, from the beginning of humanity, we would have not progressed 1 inch without tools. Mm-hmm. And what we need right now is the communication tools put in place to bring us all together. Politics has done an excellent job at dividing everybody. Yeah. All the races, the religions, the nationalities, your sexual preference, everybody's divided. The politicians have done an excellent job at that. But what we need now are the tools to bring us all together, to interconnect those brain cells.
Absolutely.
And, when you were talking about the Second Amendment, I think people are finally realizing that it's the gun manufacturers that are actually determining the gun rules in America. And if you really look at the gun manufacturers, what they are is corporations. Mm-hmm. And it's funny that God's trying to tell us something. If you look at the abbreviation for corporations, it's CORPS. Mm-hmm. The only thing that's missing is the silent E. Corpse. A corpse is death. Death is now running America.
Yes.
And the problem is that the corporations have a voice and we the people don't. And we the people, and what this will do, One Voice Now, onevoicenow.org, it's the blueprint that you need in your community to get busy to empower each and every person. in your community to take it back away from the corporations, because the corporations are doing nothing but making laws that allow them to laugh all the way to the bank. Think about your school, the school corporation. That the hospital is a corporation.
Yes, it is.
The Democratic Party is a corporation. The Republican Party is a corporation. Even the independent parties are corporations. These are the people that have voices, but we the people don't have a voice, and it was the intent of our founders to have the direction of America decided by we the people. And it has failed. But if we stand up right now, and the timing is absolutely perfect because people are ready. I became an activist 30 years ago, started doing a radio program called Stand Up America.
Great.
It was a local program. And I used to tell the people on the radio, I said, the politicians don't have the answers for you. You have the answers. The politicians hated this station so bad. It was just a local station, but they made our only talk radio station go to music. And now today, look at what we have right in the palm of our hands. You got Jeff, you got Dave, we're talking. We've got, at least 40 people watching, and hopefully they're going to take this video and share it with as many people as possible. But we can get this idea out now. And think of the broadcasting stations. Those are corporations.
Absolutely.
That's where all of the campaign finance money ends up. It ends up in the media. The media absolutely hates One Voice now. Why do you think? Because they know that after a period of time, all that money that they're getting from all those campaign finance contributions, what do we need it for? All of a sudden, we the people don't need to vote for somebody to represent us. We can start representing ourselves like we should in the age of communication. But if we sit back, like Jeff was saying, and we don't do something, World War III is a war that nobody's going to win.
No such
We aren't going to win that war.
No.
Russia's not going to win the war.
No.
North Korea, nobody's going to win that war. We're all going to lose. And after it's all over, it's too late. But it's time right now because people are awake, people are ready, people are afraid, and people are looking for a plan. I don't know how many people on here remember a guy by the name of Ross Perot. But back in about 1990, he was on a program called Larry King Live. And Larry King asked him, he said, if you were president, if you ran this country, he said, what would you do? And Ross Perot said, well, I'd build a technological town hall meeting system. That's exactly what we have the blueprint for. And when he said technological town hall meeting system, he didn't know how to build it, but America went crazy. And I don't care what anybody says, Ross Perot won the election. I've been an activist for 30 years, have done radio programs, and I can tell you, I haven't found anybody that didn't vote for Ross Perot. He got 20%. The two organized crime syndicates said we're going to give him 20%. And whoever takes it, takes it. And that's exactly what happened. But, hey, we got to pick up where Ross Perot left off. We have the technological town hall meeting system that rocked America. And if the people on this program right now that are watching this program will please take onevoicenow.org and share it with as many people as you can. I think we can use social media to start a groundswell.
Absolutely.
And once again, if anybody knows of anybody, like a celebrity, a musician, an actor, that really cares about what's going on in this world, we have the plan to fix it.
You could also
One Voice Now is the plan to fix it.
I do this all the time. I don't know if it works. I'm just a guy. I don't know if it works at all, but every now and again I will get on Twitter and I will tweet, whoever it is I want to get the attention of, and I'll just say X, Y, and Z. You want to get the attention of someone, just say, tweet whoever you want. By the way, check out onevoicenow.com and tell me what you think. If you don't know anyone, it doesn't hurt anything to be able to take 3 seconds and send out a tweet. You never know what might happen. You never know.
That's right.
People reach out to me all the time. I have no idea who they are. I respond. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. There's nothing to be lost. and you never know what you might find. But
Well, this is the time to stand up. The timing is absolutely perfect.
absolutely.
And there's not going to be a better time, I can tell you that. Hopefully we have some time. You turn on the TV and it's like, you mean the media is really talking about this could be World War III, really? I mean, it's like, they're talking, it's like, oh yeah, this could be World War III. And it's like, do any of you have any brains? Do you understand that we are on the verge of wiping out humanity? We are on the verge of wiping out everything that generations have built over the years. Unfortunately, if you look at the media also, you see what America and other countries are responsible for in other, like in Libya and Syria. And, it's, look at there's your future right there. Those people couldn't stop it. They didn't know how to stop it. They thought they were going to stop it with violence. You don't stop it with violence. You stop it with a better plan. And we the people have a better plan.
And we have an opportunity.
VoiceNow.
Yeah. We have an opportunity now to do it without violence because things are bad. Things are really bad. But I'm hoping that they're not so bad that violence just breaks out en masse. We have an opportunity right now to take the awareness that we have, that we did not have prior to 2016, and turn that to an instrument of good. Turn that into good activism, peaceful activism. We have that opportunity.
Absolutely.
And we don't want to blow that opportunity. We don't want to let it pass us by and then things get worse and then things really do get out of hand. So let's get out there. But with that, we're going to have to wrap it up. Savage Joy is coming on. David, thank you so much for coming on. This was a really great conversation. I hope we can do it again sometime.
Let's do it, Jeff. Thank you so much to yourself, man. And thanks for your great work, seriously.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for yours. Hey, everyone, I'm going to be back next week. I'm going to be interviewing Michael Weiss. We'll talk more about that. There's a lot to get to. I love you guys very much. Remember, self-care is essential. Remember, each one teach one. Check us out on Real Progressives. Check out Deficit Alice. Check out Stephanie Kelton. Check out Alice Winningham, Dr. Joe Firestone. Savage Joy is coming up in just a few minutes. I love you guys. Peace out. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.